Bam, bam, dip, dip, bam, bow. Bow, now, bam, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow.
Not even close. Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about how to bridge the generation gap. We've got older folks in our church, we've got younger folks in our church, we've got millennials, we've got seniors, we've got a whole range of folks in our church. The question is, how do we communicate to everybody? That's what we're talking about today. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Church Media Guy Show. My name is Dave Curley. In case we haven't met before, I'm the founder of ChurchTrainingAcademy.com, which is a website and a community of church professionals, church media professionals, church communicators, where we all learn how to use and exploit media and technology to share the gospel, to take it out to the world, to use all these fantastic tools that are out there and maximize them and share the gospel. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Mr. Justin Nava. Hello, sir.
What's going on, Dave? What's going on, everyone watching this either live or recorded? This is going to be a really good show. I'm excited for this one because this is one of the biggest questions we get asked most often. And this is going to, and we have like the best person to answer the question for us today, Jeanette. And,
I would agree. Yeah, Jeanette's a fount of information. And it's really cool because I'm gonna give just a little taste of the thing. One of the things that she was talking about that, so many of us churches are moving away from is like the bulletin. Do you guys still use bulletins at your church?
Yes.
You do, yeah.
Unapologetically.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of us try to move beyond that and get as virtual as we can and all that. And, that old stuff, the old print stuff, can really still be effective.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, before you share the tip, I want to ask people that are out there that are listening, are people using Instagram stories? I am seeing some things from people showing up in my Instagram that's saying that they're part of their story and stuff, but I'm going to admit I don't use Instagram stories. I don't, I'm still in the why put stuff into it if it's going to go away real quick? Am I missing something with Instagram stories? And I guess, does Facebook do something like that as well, besides just regular live streaming? Am I missing the boat here?
Yeah, so real quick.
Perfect. Thanks. Bye. I'm leaving.
I'm just going to get a little shot here from my Instagram story. All right, cool. That's going to go on my stories later. So that's stories is temporary. It's what's the word? Non-volatile. Does that mean it doesn't last?
No, non-volatile means that it stays. It's stable.
Okay, so it is volatile.
It is volatile.
I know there's a fancy word for it. That means that it goes away. It's temporary.
Okay.
And the reason why people fell in love with stories is because the generation right underneath mine grew up basically with the least privacy of any generation ever. Maybe you could disagree, because I know people used to get married and then they would still live in the house, their parents, in one room, like 2 beds in the same room, which is, that's a little weird by today's standards. But, the folks even just 5 or 6 years younger than me, what happened was they were applying to jobs and businesses figured out, I can look at their Facebook and see the kind of person they really are. So their Facebook became part of the interview process, and they were getting burned because they wanted to share things that they were doing, having fun on weekends, going on trips, and doing a bunch of stuff that, while it's fine for them to do alone or independently, maybe the business was like, really, like every picture you take, you have a beer in your hand, so you must be an alcoholic, even though that might not be the case.
Right.
So what happened was that teenagers and younger folk, they started posting to social media less or more carefully, and everything became more framed. This picture's going to live forever.
Right.
So I got to get the perfect. You know what I'm saying?
The perfect duck lips, yeah.
If you're listening to the audio podcast, I just did duck face.
Yeah.
And it
Blue steel.
It became exhausting because every picture had to be perfect because it lived forever.
Sure.
And Instagram came out with stories. And this was basically tell the story of your day. And you don't have to worry about it being perfect. You don't have to worry about it living forever because it's going to go away tomorrow.
Kind of Snapchat-ish, right?
Right. Yeah. Snapchat started it, right? And then Instagram kind of made it popular.
Okay.
So basically stories is, it's made for the phone because it's all portrait mode. And if you can see the picture I have here, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, we can see it.
It's portrait mode, and it doesn't have to be pretty because it goes away tomorrow. So you can be a little bit more of yourself. You don't have to get the perfect hair. You don't have to get your makeup perfect. You don't have to get the perfect background and the perfect light. You're sharing your story, and you're getting people involved with it. More and more features come out with stories to get people involved, like polling and tagging and hashtagging, and now they're searchable. But you don't have to worry about it being perfect because it goes away the next day. So that's why churches would be using Instagram stories, because we can share a lot, especially during events, without cluttering up our feed, without cluttering up other people's feeds, and we can still tell the story. So if you've got, if you're at youth camp, for example, just to put it specifically for churches, you're taking dozens of photos for camp. If you put all those dozens of photos on Instagram in one day, you're clogging up your feed and you're clogging up your followers' feed, and they might unfollow you because you're clogging up their, okay, fine, I get it. You're at youth camp. Let me see my other pictures of food and stuff. And so they're like, calm down now. But you can put it in stories and it doesn't clog up the feed. It doesn't last forever. You can pick your top 2 pictures from the story and archive it or make it a post that lives forever. But really, it just takes the pressure off. Okay,
so I just did something while you were talking. And I got the dual screen up here for those that are listening. So I'm sure some of y'all saw me do a stupid face, just like Justin did. So I hit me, and then I went and took a picture, and now it's in my stories. But now, I mean, it's just there, and like, someone I follow will say Dave Curley added to his story.
Yeah, it'll only alert them if you haven't posted in a while. So I might get an alert because you've never posted to stories before.
Okay, cool.
If you're regularly posting to stories, it's one of those things where people, like, they have to go into it. Instagram will kind of put it in front of them like, hey, Brady has a story or Dave has a story, and I can click and watch it. And there's a lot of people, when they wake up at the beginning of the day, they actually go to their stories and they just set play all. They just watch it like a video, and they can watch everyone's story without ever having to touch their phone.
Gotcha.
Which a lot of people will do.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's kind of just, it's there, and if people are really interested, they can watch you, and you're not subject to the algorithm because you're just there.
Sure. Awesome. Okay, so real quick, so everybody go find me, Dave Curley, DAVECRLEE, Dave Curley. It's down here on the Chiron, on Instagram. And what's yours? Is it Justin Nava?
I am Justin Nava. I'm putting the links up in the we'll put them in the show notes, and we'll put them in the
absolutely. So go follow us on Instagram. And if you've got some cool, beautiful stuff that you're doing and stuff, we will definitely follow you back. And we'll start using stories. He uses it. I'll start using stories. I don't know how interesting my life is, but I'm willing to share. So one of the things that we wanted to tell you in our pro tip was, besides using Instagram and doing stories and stuff, was a way to do it a little more purposefully, and that is using InShot. Is that what the app is? InShot, yes, and it's available for both platforms. Give them a quick highlight of what InShot does, and we'll actually do an InShot tutorial for you guys in our actual published pro tip.
Right. So InShot, what that's going to do for you is it's going to help you edit your media to look better for the different platforms. And right now we're focusing on Instagram stories because that's kind of hard, because you might take a graphic you might take a like a Sunday social square image, and you need to reposition it just a little bit better to get it to fit in the stories. Or you need to take a widescreen video and you're like, how do I turn this 16:9 video and fit it in a 16:9 vertically?
Right.
But it's without stretching it out to infinity. And Dave, while I talk, someone on YouTube said that my audio is really low.
Okay.
And so he's straining to hear me. He just said me though, so it's Jason E. Curtis. I don't know if you know who that is. Yeah. So while I speak, Dave's going to go ahead and fix that if you're having that issue as well. So what InShot does is it lets you pick between different predetermined layouts, like a square Facebook post, a 4x5 Facebook post, or what I use it for is a 16:9 Instagram stories post.
9x16, say it right.
9x16. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
And what you can do is you can actually add, if you have something that's square, it'll let you letterbox it and add bars to the top or bottom, or gradient, or you can add background, or you can add special text or animation effects that you don't get within the built-in native editor inside of stories. And so if you do have a widescreen video, you can add some text on top or below it to make it fill out the 9:16 frame of Instagram stories. Or you can stretch it, you can tilt it, you can, of course, you can crop it, and you can use it for any platform. It's got pre-designed layouts for Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram stories, and then Instagram 4x5. It's got a whole bunch of different things you can do. So if you have media that you upload to stories or any other social platform, and you think, man, this is on my phone, I took the picture, I need to edit it real quick, InShot is a great way to get it edited quickly. And it will also do video. So it's not just pictures, but if you have a video you want to cut, reposition or portion correctly, you can also use that. And it's a free app. And it's one of those that needs to belong in your toolbox.
Awesome. Fantastic. Before we move on to our next segment, I wanted to share something. As I get hardware in, I'm going to start doing reviews and showing you guys what I've got, why I'm using it, why I like it, all that kind of stuff, right? This week I got in the Stream Deck by Elgato. This is it's about a $150 unit. I'm going to be using it actually in the production of this show. It allows you to set up hotkeys basically with all these buttons. You can program these buttons to do various things, and you can use it system wide, which is really cool. So I could actually have it if I'm like just on my Mac normally, I could like have this button be Photoshop and this one be Premiere. When I hit it, boom, Photoshop comes up and Premiere comes up, etc. You can have it do stuff like that. You can also use it for gaming and all that kind of stuff. What I'm going to use is with the software I'm doing the broadcast with, OBS. I'm actually going to take all my shots and load them up in here and stuff. So I'm going to do an unboxing of this. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. I'm going to get it all set up and get it tested, make sure it's all working, and then I will share with you guys how I'm using it. Like I said, it's not very expensive. It's really cool. There's other things that are out there. This one seems to be the cleanest, and I love the fact that you can, when you assign something to it, it actually puts a proper graphic on there. So where some of them, like the ones from X Keys and stuff, they have removable keys, so you can actually write the name on it or print something and stick it on there and have a good looking button and stuff. But this kind of does it on the fly according to what keys you're sending to it in what app and stuff. So it's really cool. Anyway, I'm gonna go through all that and bring that to you guys. Hopefully this week. I've got to do some updates and stuff to my machine that I before I do it. I'm actually going to do a big old BIOS hack on here and stuff to make it all work. So I'm either going to show it to you with a big smile on my face, or I'm going to show it to you and I'm going to be really upset. Either way, you guys are going to get to see it. It's going to be pretty cool.
So, but if you like tools like what Dave shared, if you like apps that we're sharing, if you like learning about all this stuff to get the job done quicker, easier, and on a shoestring budget, and by the job, I mean your ministry, your church media ministry, then go and check out our Facebook group, Church Media Hacks. You go to churchmediahacks.com and just go straight to our Facebook group. What it is we're sharing quick tips, quick wins that you can get, and ethical shortcuts. I said that to my pastor, or one of my pastors, the other day, and he was like, ethical shortcuts. I like that because he hates shortcuts. But if they're ethical, so we're not saying break the law. We're not saying do sin, to get something done. We're saying ethical shortcuts. These are things and apps and tools and tricks that you can use to get the job done faster, easier. And again, even if you're on no budget, these things are going to help you. In fact, this week we were kind of talking about social media and emojis and a tool you can use to easily get emojis on any computer that you're using. And that's only going to be in the Church Media Hacks group. So if you need help, if you're if you're flying solo, if you're Maverick, and you need help getting things done in your media ministry, and there's just not enough time in the day or days in the week or days in the month, if you have a passion to see the job done well, but you're struggling, or your team needs help, go to the Church Media Hacks Facebook group. Again, you can just go to churchmediahacks.com. It'll forward you right there. Ask to join. We don't let everyone in. You need to be involved in church. We do a little bit of vetting, but pretty much everyone who's in church can get involved. We're just keeping out the scammers. So if you're a scammer, don't even bother. But if you are passionate about church media ministry and you want to see it done better, churchmediahacks.com.
And now for our feature presentation.
Jeanette Yates is a communications director and digital storyteller. She's a former stay-at-home mom and Pilates instructor turned church communications director. Now, using her gifts of storytelling, she enjoys sharing what God is doing in and through her church and community and engaging with people online. In her spare time, Jeanette enjoys hiking with her husband, hanging with her kids. She's an avid reader and a podcast fanatic. And I have heard that our show is her favorite podcast ever. Jeanette, Thank you so much for coming and hanging with us.
Oh, I'm very excited to be here. Yay. Way past my bedtime, but I'm hanging in there.
Awesome.
Good.
If you start drifting off, I'll like yell or do something to make you awake. Hey, before we get into like the meat of what we're going to be talking about today, I want our viewers and listeners to have a chance to get to know you a little bit. So I got a couple of really quick questions. These are deep and probing, so they may take a lot of thought and stuff, but I think they'll really reveal your inner soul.
I'll do my best.
Okay. All right, here we
And
go.
it's late night, so she's going to be too
Yeah, I
tired to
know.
lie to us.
Yes,
Yeah.
this
It's
is
100% truth.
That's exactly right. Fantastic. So let's start off with probably the most important one. Coffee or tea?
Ooh, Diet Coke.
Oh, seriously? All right. This whole thing's off the rails now.
Sorry.
So
I'm going rogue.
Yes. No.
Well, if I answered coffee or tea, anybody that actually knows me would be like, liar. She lies.
Okay. So Diet Coke. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's okay. We'll let that pass. So Star Wars or Star Trek?
Ooh, Star Wars. For real.
Yes. Okay, that makes up for it. We're 1-1.
Good. Awesome. Hey, she's qualified now to join Church Media Guys.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Fantastic. All right. So are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Ooh, I don't know. I think if I took one of those tests, it would probably say introvert, but I fake it really well because I love chatting, especially online.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in between. I don't know.
Yeah, I call myself like an omnivert. I could like totally hermitize for a week without a problem. But like when I'm around people and stuff, I enjoy, interacting and on and all that sort of stuff.
Well, and I have like when I'm ready to be alone, like leave me alone kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you like throw your shoes at your kids and stuff.
I just want to be with my book. Yeah, that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Leave me to my podcasts.
Okay, so summer or winter?
Well, I live in Florida.
So winter, obviously.
So winter.
Awesome. As I understand it, you've got some pretty definite thoughts about the importance of helping older generations in the church, communicating to them, I guess we could say, and making sure that they're not being left behind with all the new technology and the new trends and all that sort of stuff. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think that we would all say, of course, we want to communicate with everybody within our church and, whoever our audience happens to be. But when we come to practicality of it, when we're looking at all these new tools and platforms and things that are coming out, we're not really always remembering there's a group of people that isn't so excited about the latest downloadable thing or the latest app or whatever. And, a lot of churches, I know in my experience, every church I've ever attended, I know where I work now, we've been around a long time. We have many generations in our church. And so, whenever there's this, there's this big discussion in all the church communications groups about, burn the bulletin, get rid of it, all this. And every time I hear that, my heart kind of, breaks a little bit because I know that for my congregation, for the people that I work for and serve, the bulletin is their main way that they connect with what's going on at church. And, so for us, for a long time, I tried to figure out how we could get rid of it and what we were going to do. And then I was like, you know what? That's not right for us because our church needs the bulletin to help stay connected with that older group of people. And so even though that's not a newer form of technology, print is a form of technology. And maybe how I design that bulletin, I might get to use some of my new technology. But it's something that, I am intentional about in our church communications is making sure that we are not leaving that group behind.
My parents are in their 70s and they're at the age where they were jumping onto new technology and all this sort of stuff. And, over the last 20 years, they've adopted slower. I mean, they have iPads and they have smartphones and all this sort of stuff. But, their parents, which a lot of churches still have people in their 80s and in their 90s, like they don't have a Roku, Right. They may have satellite, they probably only have cable, so, much less an app, how are you guys addressing stuff like this?
Well, and you bring up a good point. They may have the technology, like they may have gotten a smartphone for Christmas, so that their adult children can keep up with them or, get
But
like
it's
keep in
still
touch with them.
sitting in the box.
Right.
On
But
kind of
they're
the
not
board.
comfortable with it. And so I think, interestingly enough, I think the whole paper bulletin thing actually is part of the strategy to getting to that, introducing new technologies, because one of the biggest fears that I have heard, and this, I haven't done research on this particularly, but this is from my own personal experience from the many older people that I come in contact with on a regular basis. Their biggest concern, not just within the church, but they see this going on in the world around them, that they are being kind of left behind.
Yeah.
When they go to the doctor, they're asked to now sign on to the patient portal to make an appointment or to ask a question. Everything, if they call to make a reservation, it's like, oh, we'll go to the Open Table app and make a reservation. Then they come to church and we're asking them to go to the website to sign up for something.
Right.
And that just makes them uncomfortable. But when we say, how do you best want to communicate? How can we communicate with you? And the answer is paper bulletin or paper sign up form or whatever. And we say, okay, we're going to make sure that you have a way that feels comfortable. We're letting them know that we're listening to them.
Sure.
And when we do that and they say, oh, we're not being left behind, our church still cares for us and loves us, then that gives us a little bit of, credit, some proof, social proof, some buy-in, I guess, a little bit, some trust. We're building trust with them. And then I think, one of the things that I did was I introduced technology in a way that was meaningful. So I didn't introduce them to something that they weren't going to use, like that didn't mean anything to them. But for example, one of the things I did first was when they would ask me to create, put something in the bulletin for their event that somebody was having, one of our older groups. We have actually 3 or 4 like senior adult groups at our church that have various events. We have quite a bit. And so they would have an event and they would want me to, put a blurb. Well, I would spend the time to talk to them. I would write good copy, and then I would create for them little postcards to use for invitations. I would create a graphic.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe sometimes, if there was room, put that graphic in the bulletin. I would make them posters, all from using my technology, Canva, to be honest.
Love it.
And they were like, oh, how did you do this? Oh, well, I use this tool. Let me show. Oh, that's really neat. Oh, could you do this? Could you do that? Yes.
Yeah.
And then
So
I'm introduced. Yeah. And then I introduced, we're baby steps, but I, kind of introduced technology in a way. Well, you know what, 4 years, then we're still signing up people by paper. Well, 4 years down the road, this time I'm doing the same event for the past 4 years. They've been doing this event for longer than that. I'm doing this, we've got our plan, and somebody goes, hey, do you think people can sign up online for this? I know that we do other things where they sign up online. Could they sign up online for our event too? Well, yes, they can. But it took me some time to introduce the things that when they were relevant for them. So I think that's one of the things that you have to do. And so I have a few more examples of those, but that's what I think the strategy should be, is build trust and then introduce technology as it pertains to them and as it means something to them.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, first, even before build trust, when you were talking about understanding where these folks are coming from, is number one is empathy, because we have to understand that the world is leaving them behind, whether it's true or not. They feel that way. I mean,
right.
They even go to restaurants and you have to order on tablets now, and that's weird. Like, and the church may be for them the last face-to-face relationship beyond their family, because the banks are automated now. The cashiers you hardly see. The restaurants, you're lucky to get a waiter, right? We went to Olive Garden and they were like, we're short-staffed, use the tablet on the table. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but that might freak some other people out.
Right.
And the church has been built to them for 80 years as a community and a relationship, and, a face-to-face with the pastor. And I can understand how maybe they feel like, well, don't leave us behind because this is all I have left. You know, I
Right.
was told that this is going to be here forever. And then you use that to build trust and go into the technology, because I had that same experience
Yeah.
when I had someone come up to me, you know, old Miss June, and she said, I think we can get some people to sign up if we just put it online instead of asking them to come
Right.
sign the paper in the back. And I was like, I love it. Let me
Yeah.
do that for you. Like, I want to be here for you. My biggest struggle, though, is navigating the change. Like, when do you ever put that line in the sand? I mean, do you have a plan to phase out, maybe not specifically the bulletin, but phase out paper signups? Do you have that in mind, or are you still just, you know, one step at a time? Do you plan out anything like this when you introduce a new technology, or do you just do like one step at a time?
So I think you do one step at a time, certainly. And I think you can phase out. And I'll talk a little bit about, you know, actually kind of like doing some training in a second. But one thing that we've done that's very helpful, because we got some feedback, I got a few phone calls, because one of the things that we do in the bulletin is we'll give a little copy, and then it'll say, for more information, go to the website, and it gives, you know. Well, I would get feedback and they would say, well, that's great. And I have a computer, but I don't feel comfortable clicking on a bunch of things on a website. You know, they've heard from somewhere that that's how viruses get on your computer, which isn't not true, but you know, they don't know what to trust and what not to trust.
Malware and installing malware on everybody's computers and stuff. So yeah.
Right. And so that, you know, they're nervous. And so what we've done is we still want to drive everybody to the website to sign up for things. So when, you know, my contemporaries or, you know, my peers are looking at the bulletin, if they want to sign up, then I want them to know to go to the website. But then we also put, and I know some people would be like, oh, you have 2 calls to action. It's not a big deal. We say, go to the website or call the front office. Go to the website or call we don't even need to give the number. Why? Because the number's on the bulletin, on the front of the bulletin, and it's been the same number, I don't know, since we got telephones. I don't know. But like, everybody knows the number that would want to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what we did too.
And then they call, and guess what we do? We sign them up online. We just go do it online.
Right.
It's not that. So we are still getting the online printout that we need and all that kind of stuff. And it's just customer service. Like, it's the nice thing to do.
So,
and we're all about efficiency, but before that, we're all about serving. So
how do you handle it when you have folks that don't have an email address? My grandmother doesn't have an email address.
We would sign up your grandmother for our summer women's event by putting our one of our emails in, and then her name, and then a contact number for her, or how, you know, that's what we would do. And that way, and so then when we do the list and we see 37 of, you know, the same email address, we know those are the ones we've entered manually. Does that make sense?
Sure. And then if you need to send information or updated information, you'll actually do it through snail mail.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if like a last minute thing has happened, we will do a phone tree or something like that. But that hardly ever happens enough for it to be an issue for us. And the amount of people that actually don't have an email, like they may not want to use it to sign up. Like they don't want to, you know, but we might have their email even if they don't want to put it in our sign up form. So we could even say, we know you signed up, but they just feel uncomfortable at putting,
right.
Like they don't mind signing up. They don't want to pay online. So that's another thing that we run into, but they can just come pay, just drop a check by the front office. It's not a big deal. Like we don't want it to be a barrier for people to come to things. So that's what we do.
I think that's a critical statement right there. The making sure that there's no barriers. The whole idea is for people to participate in this. And, you know, and you've seen over the years how it has become less and less and less of an issue because more and more people are adopting new technology. Like you said, there's only a few people that don't have emails. You know, my grandmother doesn't have an email. Grandmother never had an official job. You know, right. I mean, she was a mother and a housewife, and she's 97 years old. So she doesn't have an email address and stuff. But, you know, people that are in their 80s do because they've had a job sometime in the last 20 years. They may still have their job or whatever. So, yeah. And I think over time, there's going to be that shift that happens where we're going to have to where we're going to depend less and less and less on quote unquote traditional communications, because the
Right.
traditional communications methods are going to be the ones that we're moving into now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if we were talking about hundreds of people, or, it was very inefficient and it was causing a lot of extra work for us, then we might have to get, develop another strategy. But
Start a satellite church just for
right. But the bottom line is, again, I just came to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't want these people, this group of people, to feel, or any group, but especially this group, to feel left behind, or like that we're not listening to what they're saying. And, I think when we demonstrate that we care about them and we want them to be connected, they're going to seek out ways that they can connect with us. And more of that older generation are getting on Facebook, because that's where they can keep up with their children and grandchildren. They're kind of starting to adapt to some of these technologies. And I think that's where the church can really step in and do some great work with actually bridging the communication gap and the generation gap by kind of leveraging some of that through trainings.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. I think one of our previous episodes, Justin and I were talking about different ways to use podcasting in your church, not just the service each week, but also other different types of ministry opportunities. And he brought up the point of how the church has become the church used to be the center of the community, for decades and decades. And now it's an afterthought for most people.
Right.
We're not the center of the community. So he was saying, one of the things you could do is provide a weekly resource for the community. What's going on in the community? Civic events, the grand opening of a new restaurant, interviews with business owners, and all this kind of stuff, and start making yourself a connector for members of the community and becoming a resource like that. And I think another idea that you just said is providing training for the people that don't understand how to use or don't feel comfortable using the technology, the new technology, doing an introduction to smartphones.
Right. Exactly.
Like and that's also that's an internal ministry opportunity that is kind of self-serving, because you're bringing these people in, but also it's an outreach tool, because this is something that you can promote on the website. You can say, sign up for our intro to web technology class for seniors, or something like that,
or sign your parents up.
Exactly. But it can be an outreach thing, and just another avenue for people to come and become involved in your church.
That's true. And, another thing that I think it would do, and this is something that really has been on my heart, Titus 2 talks a lot about how the older generation should lead and be examples to the younger generation. Right. Well, that implies that there's a connection and that there's ongoing interaction, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens in the church today? We have separate services,
right,
that tend to gear towards separate different generations. We have our separate ministries that are geared toward separate generations, which I'm not opposed to. I think those are all good things, to have a women's ministry thing and a men's ministry and an old, senior adult and youth. And I'm for that. But when we are doing so much of that, there may be a danger that we're not providing enough opportunities for the generations in our church to be interacting with each other. So what I want to see, and this is, a dream, I have only done this in small ways, but I've seen it done in small ways at my church as well, is I think it would be a great idea to say, who really knows technology well? Do you know what? Not necessarily me, but my kids.
Right.
And I would love to pair my middle schoolers up with my grandmas and have, because I can't train everybody.
Right.
But we have a whole youth group.
Yeah. And they can help the grandmas set up their YouTube channels and start doing, cinnamon and
Well,
Tide Pods challenges.
Well, let me tell you about YouTube
I
at our
know.
church. There's one Sunday school class at our church that posts their Sunday school, their lessons on
Bible study.
YouTube every week.
Good.
Guess what class it is?
I'm going to say it is the old ladies class.
It is one of our older generation classes.
That's awesome.
And it is. And you know what? And this is the story. This is what made me start thinking about this. It's not even, I can't even take credit for this. This is Miss Pat. She told me about this. She said she was sitting there in class and there's so many people in there and they have a huge class and there's like 40 people in there, which is, big. But typically on a Sunday, there may only be 25 or 30. Why? Because a lot of them are sick or, not able to come. They're home, but they're missing this great teaching from this wonderful woman. And so she said, well, I just think we should video it. And she knows her grandkids watch YouTube all the time. She's like, I bet we could put it on YouTube. Well, she doesn't know how to do it. So what does she do? She asks her grandkids. So her grandkids then come to Sunday school to video the thing and then show her how to put it on YouTube. And I was like, that's what we need to do. Like, multiply that. Like, we need to, that's the thing.
Right.
That's the church right there. That's, somebody wanting to share, this awesome teaching from this great teacher with their friends, and maybe someone shares it, maybe not just with the people in the Sunday school class, maybe they forward it to a friend. I mean, that's how it works. I don't know. As you can tell, I get really excited, but I think when I heard that story, I was like, you know what, if we're not doing that, if we're not providing opportunities for the younger generations to help the older, and it's relevant to them, that's something they need. They want to stay connected with their Sunday school class so they're not missing out. They want to stay connected with the sermon series. They want to stay connected with, what's going on. That is a perfect on-ramp to say, hey, did you know that you could watch your Sunday school class on YouTube? Did you know that you could watch our pastor's preaching on YouTube? No. Well, let me show you how to do that. I mean, that's the perfect on-ramp. That's the perfect way to say all technology isn't bad. As a matter of fact, it's something that we want for you, not just because it's cool, to your point earlier.
And this isn't the first time we've had to do this. I mean, I taught my great-grandmother how to change her digital alarm clock because she told me, like, it's running fast. Can you slow it down? And I said, no, it doesn't work that way anymore. But let me show you how to change it, right? Yeah. We all showed our grandparents how to work the cable TV, right? We've showed them how to work their smartphones in the last years. And so they're capable, they're willing. We just want to bridge the gap. And I really like the way you put it. So I'm just going to be the boring guy and read it. You said, using technology and digital literacy of the younger generation, we can connect generations through reverse mentoring and provide opportunities for intergenerational relationship building.
Yeah.
Because that's just one connection point that, we have available to us. And that it's not just one way, right? It's not the kids showing the Joy Bunch that just, it's not them showing how to use YouTube, but it's also the older people making that connection and discipling the younger kids in a new way, right? Making that connection.
Exactly. And that was going to be and this is circling back to Titus 2. This provides that connection point, like you said, so that the older generation can then have that opportunity to share and be an example. And I think, what, I was listening to a podcast this morning about Generation Z, which is the
zombie, right?
Yeah, or the iGen is what some people are calling this. These
the iGen
after the millennials.
Apple doesn't even use that letter anymore.
I know, right? I don't know.
They do have it trademarked, and now we have to pay them like $20. Thanks.
Sorry,
oh,
I didn't. There's a book out, so I didn't do it. Anyway, but and they said that that generation, the Generation Z, has more in common with baby boomers than millennials or Gen X. So who knows if we actually pair them together in some mentoring, they might actually start, chatting away at all the,
they're gonna find that common ground. Man, those millennials just ruined the world.
Exactly.
Yes, you're exactly right, grandson.
So I just thought that was so neat. I was like, yes, I knew it. But I've always had friends that were not of my generation. When I was 10 years old, my best friend was a lady named Dorothy Reckenthaler. I just love her name. I think that's the coolest name ever. And she was 90 or maybe she was 80, but I was 10. So,
She might as well have been 100.
So I kind of identify with that. And I was talking to my son the other day about her. I was telling him about this interview, and we were swapping stories, and he was like, well, that reminds me of my old golfing buddy at the club. And I was like, what? He was like, oh, well, when you used to go work out, there was a man that would always come talk to me, and he was, my like grandpa's age, and he would come and chat with me. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, he was my buddy. I was like, see, there was an opportunity there to connect with multi-generations there too. So well, I think, the more opportunities we give, that can only be a good thing, right?
Yeah. And the bridging of the generations helps the older folks understand the younger folks, that they're not just a bunch of idiots running around, there is actually some depth in some of them, as it were. But more importantly, the younger folks learn that these old people, quote unquote, are relevant, and they have a lot of wisdom, and they have, they may be able to take instruction from them on life things that they may not be hearing from their parents, but because Walt said it, well, and Walt was in the war, so Walt knows. It's the exact same thing your dad's been telling you for the past 2 weeks.
Exactly.
But because Walt said it, it's sunk in, and they have the opportunity to earn the right to speak into their lives, because it ends up being a two-way street, and it ends up, I'm teaching them how to do this. I'm helping them do all this sort of stuff. So the kid's going to be learning and listening to the older folks as well, simply because they're it's like reverse engineering authority. So it's like the kid is the authority, but then surreptitiously they're also, able to suck in all kinds of wisdom and knowledge from the older generation. I think it's brilliant. It hits on so many levels. I mean, this is something you should write a book about, or something. It's gonna change. Oprah's gonna, it'll be on her book club for years.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing that we're talking about age generations, but there's other groups of people that could benefit from technology that aren't necessarily part of that younger generation. There's also a group of people in our churches, in our communities, that are not able. We talk a little bit about the people who aren't willing, they're not ready for church, and so watching an online service or something would be good. But there's also the people that aren't able. And so that's another group that we can reach out to and say, technology helps you stay connected even when you're too sick to come. And we want to make sure that you are able to stay connected. And again, that may involve like some sort of, we're going to come to a shut-in, or to, we're going to bring it to you and show you ways that you can connect. That may be something that we want to do. But I just want us as church communicators, it is our job. It's our job, guys, to serve all the people that we're called to serve. And it's not only the new and the next. I've been saying, I don't want to reach, yes, I do want to reach Gen Z because those are my kids. And I want to make sure that they know who Jesus is, and what he has done for them. But I also, I want to reach all generations, because I want everybody to be able to stay connected and either become a person of faith or grow in their faith. And no matter how hard it is for them to get to church, or no matter what the circumstances, I want to be able to use the skills that I've been given to help that happen. And so I just want to rally my fellow church communicators. Let's not forget this group of people. And if you're a church that doesn't have a large multi-generation, then think about how you can reach out to those people that aren't able to get there, and leverage technology for that group of people. So anyway, come on, rally cry. Awesome. Let's do this.
That's awesome. So let me ask you one more question then. I'm a church communicator volunteer. I'm running the social media. I'm running the website. I'm running the live stream. And I'm not on staff. I'm not in the older generation, their ministry group. How can I what's my action step right now to bridge, to get the younger folks in the church to connect with the older folks, either over technology or to do something? What can I do after I listen to this podcast? Like what's my immediate action? What can I do?
Well,
I want to
so
get started.
if you're not in charge of the youth, then, which some of you are, I know. So a lot of our church communications people are like, well, I'm also the techie and the youth director. But if you're not in charge of the youth, I would sit down with your whoever's in charge of your student ministry, or maybe even your older children's ministry. I mean, at this point, it doesn't necessarily, maybe it's not the youth, maybe it's even some of the children, and just talk to them about this and say, hey, we have a group of older people and we have resources that they could use. We have our sermons online, but I don't think they're connecting with them. And I'd love to maybe help them get connected. So that's one thing I would do. And then I would also, if you haven't invested time in just sitting with the older groups of people, and meeting them and getting to know what their needs are, what their concerns are, who knows? They might be all over the YouTube. You don't know. I mean, we don't want to blanket like nobody's on YouTube that's above age 70. We want to see like what their needs are. Are they having trouble finding out information about what's going on at church? Do they ever go on the website? Why not? I think just spending time with them, because that's one thing that I have been able to do just from the nature of the way our church is. I spend some time just, in the office or, at Wednesday night dinner around these groups of people where we're just talking, and they are very supportive of what I do, but don't always understand it. So it's an opportunity for conversation. And because of that, I was able to kind of get feedback and then, go from there. But I think, you don't want to like walk in and be like, you need to know more about the YouTubes. Because they might go, oh yeah, we're all over the YouTubes. We don't, we got
They
it.
might be the ones that say it's YouTube, not the YouTubes.
Exactly. So anyway, we, we don't want to assume, but, I just think, talking to people like old school, like put your phone down. And that's another thing. Don't go in there with your phone.
Right.
Like have your phone, because you might want to whip it out and be like, let me show you this cool thing. But like, make sure it's not like in your hand so that you're able to look them in the eyes, and they really appreciate that. And then sometimes you'll be surprised because they'll have their phone out.
And you can be like, hey, I'm up here, right here. You're right here. Hey, put it down. Make a choice. You either talk to me or you talk to them.
Another thing that I really, that has built a lot of trust with that group of people is I made sure that when I was like doing my stuff on social media, even if they weren't the ones on social media, that I was highlighting them as volunteers. Like, hey, I know you're not on Instagram, but I'm doing a volunteer spotlight this week on Instagram. And I would love to tell people about how you trim the candle wicks every week so that we can have candles in the worship service. Can I take your picture? And they'd be like, yeah, and they're like, yes. And they get, they very excited. And then, and then I post it. And then if they have Instagram, they can see it. If they don't, I show them like, look, and, and then people start commenting. I'll say, see the comments. And that's kind of fun for them. So they get to, even if they're not on it or maybe don't want to be on it, but they still kind of appreciate it. And they're like, oh, that people now know what I do. Or, or people understand that this is because they're like, we're trying to find more volunteers. I'm like, people don't even understand what you do. Let me tell them. And so, I think that's another thing is like, even if they're not on social media, talking about them on social media is another way to kind of build trust. So I do that.
Yeah. One of the coolest things that you'll discover more on Facebook, but if you highlight them or just put a picture of them, hey, here's Miss June running the VBS craft time. One of the things that they love, even though she's not on Facebook, is someone will comment, oh, I remember Miss June. She was my Sunday school teacher. And you show her, and then she's like, I haven't seen that boy in 10 years. Like, let me see some pictures of it. And you're like, oh yeah, here's his family,
Yeah.
And it just brings a whole new level that they're connecting with. A lot of, especially with the older folk, I've noticed, at least in the 2 churches that I've done social for, a lot of times it's, oh, I love Mr. Phil. Oh, I can't believe he's still there. Oh, he looks great. And I show Mr. Phil and he's like, I can't believe they took the time to comment on that. It means so much to this.
Yeah, it really does. And then they're getting a positive experience with technology, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing too.
And then from right there, we can sign them up on Facebook.
If you would like to connect with these people more, let me show you how to sign up.
Your friends are here waiting for you.
2.5 billion or whatever.
2.3 now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and, back to that training, I think that's another way. There are some people that are, they're only down, they're not opposed to Facebook, but they just want to know how to do it. So that's one of those other, smartphone 101, Facebook 101, website 101.
Right. So that's great. Well, you got a lot of good ideas here.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So that's a perfect thing. Like, you're not going to say, go to the website, because that's where we do signups now. You're going to say, did you know that you could watch the sermons on the website? That's relevant to them. Go to the website because that's where we sign up now. Isn't? See what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, that's just, but it's the same. They're going to the same place.
Yeah.
But
when they're there, they'll see the pop up for the thing, or they'll see the,
right.
And
then they might want to click around, and once they get there, maybe if they're not uncomfortable with that.
Say, how can folks get in contact with you? Because you're chock full of fantastic ideas here.
I'm all about it.
It's stuff that a lot of us aren't thinking about. We're just kind of moving forward and growing and trying to grow and stuff like that. And people are falling between the cracks, whether they say they are or not. You can see it happening. So yes, how do people get in touch with you?
So my favorite place to connect with church comms people is on Twitter. Twitter is not dead because I'm there and I'm having a blast. So everybody should come hang out with me.
Love it.
And I am at Jeanette Yates. And I know that they're going to, if y'all have show notes, please tell me you have show notes.
Yes.
So they're going to probably put that in the show notes because it's spelled weird, but it's Jnette Yates, Yates. And I love to connect with people there anytime. And then you can also find me on the Instas with the same handle. Is that what they're called? Handles? Profile
Sure.
name? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I call it your identity.
Yes. That's the thing. So anyway, yeah, that's where I hang out mostly.
Fantastic. Hey, Jeannette.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us and share some of this wisdom and give us a lot to think about. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Chris said in the chat, she's like, this conversation is so relevant to our church. And then Tommy said, mine too, Chris. And it's like, this is, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is the number one thing that I keep hearing. We ask questions of everyone that comes into the Church Media Hacks group.
Right.
We ask questions in our email list. Hey, what's on your plate right now? What's your number one burning question? You hear me say that all the time. And so many times, the more out of everything else, it's not what's the best email platform to use. It's not how to get more engagement on social media. The question is, more often than not, how do I get the older, wiser people to buy into what we're doing? Because you will face a lot. And even if you just try to change things, when we changed our bulletin to be more streamlined and more visitor friendly, we got a lot of flack for it.
Sure.
We went through several designs and we did it in a very slow process, to even to the point where someone said, hey, I don't like the bulletin. What happened to this section that used to be on here? And be like, we had that section and it did serve a purpose, but actually we had Miss June, we had Miss Ellis, we had Chuck. We had him look at the new platform and he said that he could see that it's going this way and he was kind of in agreement with us. And, you may want to ask him and he may be able to put it in better words of, kind of how even though I designed it, I'm having their own people, what's the word?
Advocate for it. Yeah. Basically
advocate for the new bulletin. And I made sure that I had their, so you kind of find those key players in those ministries and say, hey, how does this affect you as a parent? How does this affect you as an older, as a senior member?
Sure.
How does this affect you as a youth? And make sure that you're not missing any gaps. And that's part of that is just doing a slow process. Now that doesn't mean you can't ever do something quickly.
Sure.
But for the most part, the default should be, this is going to take at least a few weeks to really get down and a few revisions. And you know what? You're also going to have to swallow some of that pride. And, the way you want to do it is not going to be 100% your way. You may have to make some adjustments because either you're blind or you're just going to have to make some, what do you call it, where you meet halfway?
Compromise.
Compromise. There you go.
Compromise.
You're going to have to make some compromises, but in the end, as long as those compromises don't compromise the integrity and the mission of what you're changing, then that's fine. That's fine. But most of the time, in my experience, when you change something and you make a compromise, it's because I had the blind spot, not them.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
If you're somehow listening to this, you just sat through a whole bunch of stuff that you already knew because you're already an expert on bridging generations with technology. You're already an expert at introducing technology to the older generations, and there's no hesitation. They buy in. They say, can I post to social media? They say, can I redo the bulletin? They say, can I throw the bulletin away and set the copier on fire? I am ready for this. If for some reason that you're listening to the show right now at the end of the show and you're that guy, kudos to you. You've got it all figured out. So you can go ahead and cut the podcast here because I don't have to tell you about the Church Training Academy Insider membership. I don't have to tell you because you know everything. I don't have to tell you how to live stream. I don't have to tell you how to get your podcast set up. I don't have to tell you how to build a church website because your website is perfect. Because every time you have a new members lunch, every member stands up and says, I saw your website and I was compelled to come to this church over any other activity that I could possibly do on Sunday. You know this. You know the secrets. You have the keys. You don't need a CTA Insiders group. And since you've got it so figured out, you don't need expert advice from Dave and I and other church communicators who have been there, who are also insiders. You don't have to be a part of our CTA Insiders group because you know what you're doing. You know the equipment. You know the stream issues. You know the software. You know the answers to all your questions. So you don't need to ask others. You certainly don't need to ask other people that have been in churches with your similar situation. You don't need to ask them, the people that had the same budget as you. You don't need to ask the people that have the same equipment as you. You don't need any of that because you're the expert. And by all means, if you're still listening, stop it right now because I don't have to tell you about our group coaching. You know exactly what you're doing. In fact, people are asking you the questions. Don't go to churchtrainingacademy.com/join. It's not for you. You know what you're doing, so don't sign up for a membership. And if you decide to get one later, that's fine because you have a huge budget. You have a huge church budget. So when the price does go up to $37, $47 a month, if it goes up to $97 a month, you can afford that. You don't need to get on it now for a lifetime discount at $27 a month. You don't need that. You're raking in the dough. You're raking in the church visitors. You got the perfect live stream. You don't need any of that. So please turn this off. Don't give us a positive iTunes review. Don't come to CTA Insiders. Just go keep being awesome because you don't need any of this. How was that?
That was awesome.
So thanks for watching Church Training Academy. Again, if you want to learn more about becoming a CTA Insiders, go to churchtrainingacademy.com/join. And if you like the show, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe to us on the podcast, give us a positive iTunes review. We'd love to know what we're doing good so we can double down and do more of it. Now, take what you've learned today and go preach the gospel and change your community. I know I messed up that last part there.
Totally messed it up. But what he said.
What did I say?
but yeah,
go change lives.
What he
right?
said. Take what you've learned and go change lives. Like he said.
There it is.
Yeah.
I was trying to be too fancy.
No, that's okay. No,
take what you learned and go fellowship.
There he is dropping the F word.